Good afternoon, Jennifer speaking. Hi, how you doing? Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect timing. I guess when I read through the platform they had on the website and looked at kind of the model that they were preaching in terms of this is how we want to redo politics. I guess the few things that really caught my eye were, one, the specific the specific reference to eliminating interference and muzzling by party leaders over local candidates and local riding associations and such. That's such. I also like that they want to take a citizens first approach in that the party as a whole won't necessarily have platforms or stances on issues, but it would be up to each individual MP to bring those issues forward to the table after having consultation with the constituents. And I think specifically for the riding of Avalon, in fact 5 out of the 7 ridings in Newfoundland and Labrador are highly rural. I also like the fact that the party's focusing on building up strengths within the region and taking steps to make sure that small towns, mid-sized towns, and small cities get their fair share of government services at the federal level, as opposed to having them all focused perhaps in the biggest city in the province or the biggest city in Atlantic Canada. We actually lost a lot of federal government offices out of the province of Newfoundland and Labrador when they moved them to Halifax recently. And I think a lot of Newfoundlanders feel a sense of disconnect, as if the main 3 big political parties don't necessarily always remember that there's a little island out there called Newfoundland and that we're part of Canada and that some of our issues are very different. I think the timing is of a party like this to come along is perfect, given some of the recent shenanigans that have occurred by party leaders at both Liberal and Conservative with regards to this riding. We saw the unfortunate situation with a Liberal member of Parliament, Scott Andrews, being thrown out of the Liberal caucus based on an accusation of something that had never been proven in court or taken to trial. And I think there's a lot of concern now among Liberal supporters that there's now potentially going to be a new Liberal and a former Liberal. And I think that type of interference sends a wrong message to people that the Liberal Party is supposedly open and accepting of everybody. And that was when they had their leadership race, anybody could sign up. Now all of a sudden, someone's getting booted out of the caucus before all the facts are really out there. Secondly, we saw the local Conservative Riding Association come up with what they felt was an excellent candidate for this riding, Chess Crosby, only to have the folks at head office say, no, we are not going to accept Mr. Crosby as the candidate. And likewise, that has a lot of people in the Conservative supporters disgruntled and upset. And I think by creating an opportunity for them to have a strength in democracy candidate, it's a way for them to say, look, we're sick and tired of the interference approach, and we're going to give our vote to someone who truly does understand Newfoundland and the issues here and can take them directly to Ottawa. without having to pass it through a leader per se, who might not be totally familiar with the issues. Thus far it has been a grassroots approach, word of mouth conversations, a lot of online and outreach through social media. One particular demographic of voters that I'm hoping to reach out to are the disenfranchised and disgruntled voters who are fed up with politics, who say that they don't vote because they don't care or they don't think their vote matters. Specifically want to target youth, vulnerable people, people who are low income, and people who I guess are generally frustrated with the current level of government services. So I've been actually fielding a lot of questions, and I've got a blog set up and a YouTube site set up, so I'm trying to make it as interactive as possible. I'm also slowly starting to spread the word. There's a lot of people who live in my riding who work in the city of St. John's, because the suburban towns of Paradise and Conception Bay South border St. John's, and therefore a lot of people in St. John's are also familiar with me and the party, so there's going to be an opportunity to reach some of those constituents in St. John's as well as physically out in the rural parts of the riding. Yeah, well, that's definitely a challenge, I think, that needs to be overcome when trying to sell the party here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But ultimately, when I looked at the principles as laid out on Force de Démocratie's website, I saw values that I felt could be transferred and were congruent with a lot of the same concerns people have here in Newfoundland. I actually believe the two founding members, one was from a Bloc Québécois who actually left the Bloc because they felt the Bloc was too focused on separation and not focused enough on Quebec's best interest as part of a united Canada. And the other one was an NDPer. And I think it's going to be easier to sell a party that doesn't technically have official stances per se as being left wing or right wing or center, to be able to say we've got representatives from all areas. We've got a former NDPer, we've got a former Bloc, we've got some candidates that have political history in right wing kind of conservative organizations, and we've got others who may be more down the middle. The fact that we are finally seeing candidates come forward out of Quebec, I think that's very important. And to see we've got one in Ontario, we've got me in Newfoundland, and I suspect we will have several more candidates announced within the next few weeks, popping up all over the country. And I'm hoping that the more the word spreads about this party and the candidates who are running, the sooner we'll be taken more seriously as a legitimate national party. I had a very good, lengthy chat with a couple of the staff, as well as co-founder MP Jean-Francois Larose, and they definitely wanted to take a look, I guess, at me and my history, my past political activism, my education, my work experience, and ultimately they want candidates, but they're not just going to put anybody's name on the ballot. They want good quality candidates, and I was really excited when they seemed highly impressed with me and I guess the personal ideologies and values I felt I could bring to the party. And it meant a lot for me to find a party. I've been kind of a bit of a lost soul politically. Not, I'm one of the many who are disgruntled and upset with the big three and felt that none of them represented me, but at the same time I knew as a citizen I wanted to get involved and engaged at the federal level. I didn't necessarily know for sure if it would be as a candidate or as a supporter, but once I had those phone calls with representatives of the party, I was sold very quickly on them, and I think they were sold on me. And we discussed what potential role, and having me as a candidate seemed to be an ideal concept and one that I'm definitely more than happy to do. And it just sort of evolved from there. It's definitely not been an issue as far as strength and democracy is concerned. It's for me as a transgendered person, I'm really excited because we've never actually seen a transgendered person on a federal ballot. I know there was one trans candidate, if I believe it was in the last election, who had won a nomination for the NDP. However, something happened and that person never actually made it to the ballot. And I think it's 2015. I think we've come a long way as a country in terms of understanding and embracing diversity and recognizing that trans people are people. And sure, some of us might not be great political candidates, but some of us are. And those of us who are educated, experienced, and qualified should be treated equally and with respect and dignity. And from that perspective, it was really exciting to know that I could not only put my name on a ballot, but have the backing of one of the 6 parties who currently holds seats in the House. Well, I think ultimately I want to bring whatever it is to Ottawa that the citizens and businesses of the riding of Avalon are looking for. I want to make sure that all of the province, in fact, Newfoundland and Labrador, has a better and stronger working relationship with whichever party gets elected. That's another thing I like about, I guess, the values of strength and democracy. They preach working with other parties rather than just being confrontational. And no matter who wins this election, having strength and democracy MPs, I'd like to think would help any region, because it will bring consensus building strategies in terms of getting things done. Between now and October 19th, I'm going to spend as much time as I can traveling around the riding and hearing from as many people as I can. Because I'll be honest, right now I do not know necessarily what all the issues are. And that's why I'm looking forward to having a very active campaign where I can meet as many different people and find out what the issues are in each little town, so that I can bring them all to Ottawa and collaborate with whoever is there to make sure that Newfoundland gets the federal government representation that they deserve. It is on, I think it's on the English page but not the French page. Strength and Democracy, strengthanddemocracy.org. I think it's on, yeah, there's an announcement. It's like the press release. We're still No, no, you're right. But that's another thing we're as a new startup party, and there's definitely, I guess, it's going to be a challenge for us to keep up with for every new candidate and keeping the website updated and English to French and French to English translation. It's an interesting challenge actually, and I think it's exciting in a way to have some Anglophone candidates running for this party. It's also going to force me to learn French, which is something I wish I would have taken on earlier in life. Very, very little. Un peu. Yeah, and yeah, so and one thing I will point out is there are some small French communities in Newfoundland, and most of them are in this riding of Avalon, which is one of many reasons why Avalon is the kind of the riding I focused on, is the one that I would run in. And I think there are occasions where the Francophones in Newfoundland kind of feel overwhelmed and forgotten, perhaps. And this is another opportunity to demonstrate to them that there's a truly national and bilingual party out there that they can choose from if they don't feel content voting for any of the other ones. Yes. Yep, absolutely. Tomorrow morning, yes, I would. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Yep. You're welcome. All right, bye. Whew. I got a little tongue twisted there. Who was that now? That was an interview with Ruby Irene Pretka, Quebec City, CBC English radio morning show. Way cool. Really happy, really excited that the Quebec media is paying attention to little old Jennifer McCreath here in Newfoundland. Strength and democracy. This party, I tell you people, it is being taken very seriously in Quebec. And I hope all of you watching this in any province, all 10 of them, will take a look at our website, strengthanddemocracy.org. And if you like what you see, get in touch with me, jennifermccreath.com, info@jennifermccreath.com. Thanks for watching. And we're going to turn the camera off, if I can find the button. It's a new camera. There it is. 1, 2, 3. Goodbye.